Hi, it's Kristen, and this video is my 2023 reading and goals wrap up. So I'm just gonna go through like the bigger points of my reading. I got some stats off of Storygraph, and so I'm just gonna go through those and maybe talk about some of the highs and lows of my reading in the year. So let's jump into it. So in total, I read 58 books, which I was so happy with. Yeah, I was impressed that I read that much. I, spoiler, succeeded in hitting my goal and actually went over my goal by a good chunk of books. So I was very happy with that. Definitely helped by reading and listening to audiobooks, because there were some days where, because I was listening to an audiobook, I read a book in a day, which if I'd been reading it physically I probably wouldn't have done. So I was very happy with that. So 58 books in total. In terms of like new books to me, it was 53, which I was very happy with. So that means 5 of the books I read were rereads. But yeah, 53 new books. It's very good. And 24 of those books were from my physical TBR, which isn't great. It's not even half. So yeah, that's definitely something I need to think about. Then I broke down those stats a bit more and looked at like what I was reading. Turns out 12% of what I read was non-fiction, which kind of surprised me, but then I looked into what those books were and it made sense. There were a few essay books that I read, and then a few memoirs throughout the year. So actually, when I looked at what non-fiction I had read, I was like, oh yes, of course. Makes sense that actually the non-fiction was fairly high. Some of the highlights, I read Wild, or I listened on audiobook to Wild by Cheryl Strayed, and it felt quite fitting when I read it. It was when it was quite hot in sort of May, June time over here, and she talks in the book about being hot and tired, and I listened to it when I was out on walks and things, so that made sense because it's about her doing a really big trek. I read We Can Do Better Than This, which is an essay collection from lots of different queer celebrities, social figures, things like that, and they talk a lot about different subjects and relate it back to being queer in various ways, being gay, being trans, being non-binary, being bisexual, all of that stuff. And there's like a range of identities in there in terms of trans, non-binary, gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, all the different sort of gender and sexual identities. But then it had a good mix of people who were from the UK, from the US, from like the Netherlands, from some places, some of the different countries in Africa, from I think Australia. So there was a really good gender, sexuality, and then like ethnicity mix in there. Really good representation and very interesting. They talk about things like sexuality and gender, but also then about like healthcare, education, safety, and like that in general, and then relating it back to being LGBTQIAP+ in some way or other. So that was a great non-fiction book I read. So then I read 88% fiction, which makes sense. The majority of my reading is fiction books. Yeah, that's just it. My average star rating is a 3.33. It wasn't good. It wasn't good, folks. I read so many 3-star books this year. So many 3-star books. That was the biggest bulk of my reading was 3-star books. There were a few 4s in there. There were a couple of 2s in there. There were no 1 stars, although some of the 2s actually, maybe I was being generous with, but no 5 stars either. I haven't had a 5-star read in so long. I just think I'm being really picky, but at the same time, if it doesn't give me a 5-star feeling, it doesn't give me a 5-star feeling. So yeah, I need to be more selective or more conscious about what I'm choosing to read, I think. And in terms of moods of what I was reading, my biggest sections on the pie chart of my moods were dark, emotional, and mysterious, which I don't know what that says about my reading. Well, it just says that I read a lot of dark, emotional, mysterious books. Yeah, I guess there were a couple of thrillers that I read last year when I've not been reading thrillers so much. There was a lot of like witchy books. Yeah, just intense books. So yeah, dark, emotional, mysterious, I guess that fits. And then in terms of genre, my biggest section, I don't know that I'd call this a genre, but Storygraph was a genre. My biggest genre was LGBTQIA+ books, which I'm happy with, actually. I think that's really great. Because when I was looking at it, I was thinking, did I read that many? Because I knew that in June I exclusively read only queer books because of Pride Month. I do that every June. I obviously read LGBTQ+ books throughout the year, but in June I specifically only read books with LGBT characters by LGBT authors. So I knew that in June the 3 or 4 books I'd read were all queer in some way. But I didn't realise that quite how many books throughout the year that were just, because I picked up for being a fantasy book, a contemporary book, a young adult book, how many of those actually had really prominent queer characters or queer themes, which was really nice to look back at and see that even of the books that I didn't know had queer characters in, that queer characters were in. And if that's like a trend in publishing, not a trend, if that's, you know, how books are being published now with more queer characters, I think that's great. And I was very happy to have that be my biggest genre. And it was nice that within that there were non-fiction books that I'd read that were LGBT plus subjects, like We Can Do Better Than This. There were young adult books like Boy Queen and Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. There were adult books like Our Wives Under the Sea. There were memoirs. So it was nice to look at that as like a selection of books and then realise that within LGBTQ+ as a genre, there were adult books, young adult books, non-fiction books, fiction books, memoir biographies, horror, contemporary. There was like a real wide range within LGBT books, which was great. Next on my genre of like reading, again, I don't know that I'd say this is a genre, was young adult. I wouldn't say it was a genre because it's like an age rating rather. But again, I was quite surprised by that. Although there was a point where I reread the entire Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy, which are all young adult, so that would have bulked it up. I run a book club at my work. I read to a group, we get on Zoom and I read for like an hour or so to learning disabled and autistic adults, and we always have great fun, but we do tend to read like middle grade and young adult books, so I feel like that might have bulked that up. And then in terms of like what I would actually class as genres, I read fantasy and romance. I was expecting the romance because I have got into romance a lot more over the years. I've been like building up how much romance I read, which I'm really happy with. But fantasy kind of surprised me, because I didn't think I'd read that much fantasy. But the fantasy I have read this year, I've really enjoyed. And so I'm definitely thinking that 2024 might be my year of fantasy, which I'm excited about. So yeah, LGBTQIA+, young adult, fantasy and romance. Now I'm just going to do a couple of quick worst book, best book things. So my worst books, in my opinion, you might have read these and liked them. I did not. One of my worst books was Heatwave by Victor Jestin. This sounded so appealing to me. So this one's about a 17-year-old who goes on holiday with his family, and then one night when he's by himself, he sees another teen on this like swing set by himself, being strangled by a rope to death. And he just watches this happen and then buries the body because he doesn't know what else to do. And so that's like the basic premise. It's very short. So I was thinking, what on earth is going to happen? I'm excited to see what on earth is going on. And then it was just very disappointing. The whole book was him just sort of wandering around, going about his everyday life, and he wasn't even like an interesting character, I don't think, to carry the book. It was mostly just about him trying to like get off with this girl at the holiday park he was at. It was weird and I didn't vibe with it personally. I thought the premise sounded so interesting and really intriguing, and then the actual payoff was very disappointing. So I didn't like this one. That was one of my 2-star books. So yeah, it wasn't great for me. And then the other 2-star book I had was Devotion by Madeleine Stevens. Again, really intriguing premise. It's like this woman who becomes sort of obsessed with the woman that she is like a housekeeper nanny for, and she just like becomes obsessed with the woman and sort of integrates herself more and more into their lives. And I thought, oh, this is like interesting, kind of creepy. And it was creepy, and the ending took a whole turn that I did not like. I didn't really enjoy the writing throughout. I think, again, like, it more so dealt with the premise of the book than this one did. I think there was, obviously you saw the growing obsession and stuff, but I just didn't like it. And then the ending, something that she did, even though she's obviously not a good character, just really didn't like, and it wasn't done in a way, like the whole book, in a way that I came out of it thinking, oh my goodness. It was just a bit like, oh, okay. I sort of felt like I'd wasted my time reading it a little bit. But, you know, let's get over the negativity. Let's do my best books. So I started the year reading Normal People by Sally Rooney. I am a Sally Rooney girl. I know that a lot of people aren't. I am. Conversations with Friends was a 5-star book for me a few years ago. And I'd heard people say if you liked Conversations with Friends, you won't like Normal People. And if you like Normal People, you won't like Conversations with Friends. So I was worried because I'd loved Conversations with Friends. I liked this too. It was 4 stars, so not quite as good as Conversations with Friends. But I really enjoyed this. This is just about Connell and Marianne, who like go to school together. They like vaguely know each other, and then they get to know each other better. They sort of sneak around together, and then it follows them like on and off throughout, from like their late teens to sort of early mid 20s. and just their like messy friendship, messy sexual relationship, that kind of thing. And so I feel like a lot of people don't like Sally Rooney because they're like, nothing happens in her books. I kind of like that. I kind of like it when it's done in the way she does it. And I know people don't like it because she also doesn't use like speech marks and stuff, so the punctuation's all off for people. Again, I kind of like it. I like the way she writes. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. It was a good start to the year. Then I read some witchy books, which I liked. So we had The Once and Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow. This is about 3 sisters who had like a witchy past, but people aren't supposed to use magic now. But these girls get back into it, they reconnect in their sisterhood, they meet some other women in the area where they live, and they just get back into reclaiming their magic. This one was great. I really loved the relationship between the sisters, their relationships with other characters. I liked the magic system and how magic works. And it was very emotional. I cried at the end. Another one I cried at the end of was The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. This is a Norse mythology retelling of Angrboda, who's a witch who again has to sort of reclaim her magic. She marries Loki, the trickster god, and they have children, and all their children are a little bit odd and magical in their own ways, and it's just Angrboda coming into herself again and then dealing with her family, with this backdrop of like a war between the gods. This one was great. I really enjoyed my witchy books this year. So yeah, those are my sort of favourite books. I don't have one favourite that like stood out. I guess if I had to pick like one, it might be this one. But yeah, I had a few 4 stars. Those were some of the like ones that have stuck with me a bit more. So yes, that is my reading wrap up. I will now get on to my goals wrap up, which I can already tell you did not go well. So I was definitely ambitious with my 2023 goals, knowing how poorly I stick to things. I don't know, I think I'm too like lofty with goals. I have this mentality of like wanting to achieve things, but then I put too much stuff on my plate and end up like freaking out and then not achieving any of it rather than giving myself a few goals and hitting those things. So let's just run through my goals. I've got my list down here. This is going to be embarrassing for me. Yeah, it wasn't a good time. It wasn't a good time. So my first goal was to prioritize buying books that will complete series that I've already started. I didn't really do this. I did buy some books that will complete series that I've started. I bought the second and third book in the Poppy War trilogy. I haven't read them yet, but I bought them knowing that I want to finish that series. I bought some continuations in series. I bought like a few more Tessa Dare books that were like companion novels to books I'd already read. So I did buy books in series, but I didn't prioritize doing that in the way that I was going to. In my mind, I was like, I'm only going to buy books that continue or finish series, and I'm going to make sure that if I ever buy books at any point, I'm putting those books at the top of my list. Yeah, I didn't. I sort of just mood bought books, which comes into my second goal, which was to buy more books from charity shops. I definitely did this, but I bought too many books from charity shops. I bought loads of books from charity shops. And in my mind, I'm like, it's cheaper. You know, I'm buying this book for 50p, a pound, £1.50, when full price it would be like £9.99. So And that kind of backfired on me because I ended up buying more books, way more books than I would have if I were buying things full price. That wasn't great in terms of the amount of books I collected. However, I don't think I'm going to be going into charity shops as much. Throughout the year, I had this project that I was doing for my sister's Christmas present, where I bought her 12 books, one for each month of this year. And I was trying to find books that I thought she'd actually really want to read, and I had some really good finds, but it meant every time I went past a charity shop, I was going in to try and find something because I didn't just want to be buying any old book for her. So I was going into lots of charity shops throughout the year trying to get those good finds. But it meant that anytime I then saw a book that I didn't think she'd like, but that I would like, I would just buy it for myself because I thought, you know, I've been wanting this book and it's only £1. I've been wanting to get this book for years and it's 50p, so why not buy it? But that just led to me buying way more books than I needed, way more books than I was ever going to get to within the year. My TBR has grown so much because of that, so that was a mistake on my part. But I did, overall in my book buying, I bought a lot more from charity shops, and all that money is going to charity, so I'm not going to begrudge that. I just think for my reading, for my book consuming, well, it wasn't great, but I did buy more books from charity shops than full price. Buy more from independent publishers and bookshops. I didn't do this because I was buying so much from charity shops. I then didn't buy many books from bookshops, but when I did, I was buying from Waterstones, I will say, so I wasn't buying from independent publishers and bookshops. So that is something to work on. Again, read more books than I acquire. No. We've established already that it was, what did I say, 20 something books off my physical TBR was in the 58 books I read for the year. I absolutely acquired more books than that. I absolutely bought more than 24 books. Absolutely. Throughout the year. And like books that people gave me as well. My sister was unhauling some books and gave some to me. My sister's friend unhauled some books and gave some to me. And then birthday and Christmas, I got a couple of books from like friends and family. So through my book buying, other people giving me books, I absolutely took in more books than I physically read from my TBR. Absolutely. So that is something to work on. Next up, a goal I actually managed to do. My goal was to read 40 books in the year, and we've established I read 58. So I did one goal. Next up, I had the 12 in 12 challenge that people were doing, where you get like I think it's supposed to be you get 12 friends to recommend you a book each, and you're supposed to read those 12 books within the year. I didn't have 12 friends to go to. So my sister and her housemate sat down and looked at my bookshelves and between them picked out 12 books. So I'll run through what those books are and whether I read them. One of them was The Priory of the Orange Tree. I didn't read that. Ready Player One. I didn't read that. Inkheart. Didn't read that. Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. Didn't read it. Legendborn. No. Allegiant. No. The Fifth Season. No. Heatwave. Yes. And I didn't like it. Places in the Darkness. No. The Witch's Heart. Yes. And I loved it. The Guilty Feminist, I started at the beginning of the year and then completely fell off reading to the point where I just took it off my currently reading, and I'm going to start it again when I get to it. So started, did not finish, completely wiping the slate clean with that. We'll read it this year. And The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. No. So of the 12 books, I read 2. And I liked one and I hated the other. So it's a mixed bag. But yeah, need to get to the other 10. That is, I guess, a goal for this year. Just carry those over. Next goal was to finish some series. I don't think I did that. I don't know. I read Killjoy, which was the prequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I'd already read the trilogy over the past few years. I read Killjoy, so I did complete that in terms of I read the like a companion novella to a series. I definitely continued some series because I read a couple of the follow-ups in one of Tessa Dare's romance series, although they can be read individually. I read a couple that followed on from one I'd previously read. Trying to think series-wise. I think other books in series were just me starting more series. And then I mostly just read standalones now. I did, for my book club, for the book club I run for my work, we did read the second book in a duology. So we finished that series. That was a middle grade book. The first book was called Ghost Cloud, and the second book we read this year was called Night Spark, and it's about a little boy who finds out that he can see ghosts and that he is like half ghost, and he has hijinks with his friends. It was a lovely little duology, so I did finish that. Yeah, but otherwise I think I just started series or continued with series. So I didn't finish any. So again, a goal to carry over. And then my last one was like bookish related, but not reading related. I wanted to finish the first draft of the book that I was writing. No, that was such a fail this year. I don't think I wrote for that at all this year, which makes me sad. Like, I should have done that. This is what annoys me, because I know that I had time to do some of these things. I know I had time to read more. I know I had time where I could have been writing. And I just like did other stuff. And it's fine to do other stuff. It's fine to like do things you're in the mood to do. Because there were definitely days where I'd planned to read or I'd planned to write, and then I thought, you know, I'm not feeling great, or actually like I just want a low-key day and I just want to watch like 7 episodes of the show I'm currently watching. I've just started watching like Murdoch Mysteries. I just want to watch that for the next few days. And I did that, and that was fine, and I enjoyed that time. But then there were definitely days where I was like, I don't know what I'm in the mood to do. And I then just sat on my bed because I didn't have work that day, or it was a weekend or something. And I just sat on my bed and I just watched YouTube videos all day. And not even like YouTube videos that I was that interested in or ones that I was catching up on, just like random videos. And I just spent like my whole day doing that. And I'd get to the end of the day and be like, what did I even do today? Like, I can't even tell you what I was doing. Or I just like scrolled on my phone for ages on like Twitter or Instagram, and I would just get to the end of the day and feel like I'd wasted the day not even doing something fun, like watching one of my shows or watching a bunch of movies. But I'd just get to the end of the day and go, what did I even do? And I could have been reading, I could have been writing. So yeah, because of that, I need to like be better about my time management and what I do with my time, and like actually being in the moment, focusing on the thing that I'm doing. So that, yeah. Of all my goals, I read 2 books in the 12 and 12 challenge. I achieved my reading goal, which I guess is like the big goal. And I did buy more books from charity shops, which like I achieved that goal, but it had the negative effect of me having an absolutely huge TBR now. So yeah, I actually achieved 2 goals and made a slight dent in another goal, but didn't achieve that. So this is not great. I will be doing a 2024 goals video where I will, I think, be reassessing these goals and trying to work them into something that works for where I'm at in my life, in my reading mentality, in just, yeah, in general. If you're interested in seeing how I rework these goals or any new goals that I have for 2024, that will be a video coming soon. So that was my 2023 reading wrap up, which I was very happy with, and then my goals wrap up, which I was not very happy with. It's been a roller coaster of emotions here. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you achieved any of your goals down below, what goals you might have for this year, if any of them are carrying over like mine will be. And yeah, maybe what your like favourite or least favourite books of the year were. That would be interesting to know. But thank you for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!